2024 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those in attendance as well as those watching at home or online. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director Miller. Here. Director Richardson. Director Peck.
Here.
Director Hines.
Present.
Director Lewis.
Here.
Director Wyrick. Director Campuris. Director Phillips. Director Adcock.
Present.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Here.
Mayor Scott.
Mr. Carpenter, can I recognize you to please give the invocation?
Here we go. Please join me. We come together tonight to talk about business that is important to the city and important to its citizens. That's the only reason that we're here. We want to hear what the arguments are, we want to hear what the arguments against are, and we want to make a best decision for the city and for our constituents. Let this task be the only one that we hold before us tonight as we listen to everyone speak and give us the information and the opinions and the thoughts they believe are important for us to consider. But let us always know that even with disagreement, the fact that we listen shows that we care. Even with a vote that may not be what someone wants, it doesn't mean that we did not hear. It only means that we felt in this instance there was a better course or a better way to proceed for the city. We're here as leaders, but not as rulers. We cannot lead without the help of everyone within this city. And we shall not rule because our job is for this city. Amen.
Thank you. Will you please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Carpenter, I'm going to call on you first because, okay, now we have an eighth person coming, but I still want to ask you for the record, even though I'm chairing the meeting because I'm the Ward 3 representative, I can still vote tonight, correct?
Yes, the mayor is the only one by statute that is not allowed to vote unless there is a tie. So you, even as vice mayor sitting in for him, are still the Ward 3 director. So you can still vote. May I address one other issue since I've got this?
Yes.
Before each of you is a manila envelope like this. I sent out a notice today. Inside the vanilla envelope, there are 4 ordinances that you have already passed. On top is a redlined version which shows what the changes are. These are the sales tax ordinances, the 2 ordinances to call the elections, and the 2 ordinances to levy the taxes. The state statute says that for a November election, the written documents have to be submitted by October. The statute talks about the documents, and it was a belief of mine that we could probably get everything except the declaration or proclamation after the election is over with so that we could start on January the 1st. DF&A contacted me last week and let me know that it would be April the 1st that they consider all documents to mean that the proclamation of the election is the final document. the board's intent has always been that whenever the taxes were collected, the 5/8 cent would be for a 10-year period. And if it didn't start January the 1st and ended December the 31st of 2034, that means that 6 months worth of tax revenues for the projects that you have been approved, that you have already approved, would not be available. So treating this as a misprison, we have shown the appropriate dates. It's not inconsistent with the rest of the ordinance because there's a general statement in there that the ordinances will be read in light of the state statute on sales tax and the state statute on compensatory use taxes. In the time to try to get the things quickly to the county, we unfortunately put the wrong ordinance number in the recitals as to what we were doing. So we have corrected that also. And then in the 3/8 cent sales tax, and I believe, because I know how I do these things, and I think I may have retyped this one, we got one done that had the basic language in it and didn't catch that there was a provision in one recital that would have stopped 3/8 cents tax after 10 years. So that has been deleted from that. We're not asking that the ordinances be passed again, and we're not going to change the date on the ordinances. But because these are misprisons, because this is a sales tax and a sales tax election, it would be appropriate if we could have a motion to acknowledge and accept these modifications as misprisons. We will then get the documents to the county and to the state before the end of this week, and nobody will have a question in the future.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Director Miller, do you have a question? I thought yours was from the motion. I'm sorry. Director Hines was first.
No, it was from the motion.
Okay. Director Miller?
No, I'm just playing with these buttons. I don't know how to work.
Neither do I. So we're about the same. We have one modification for today's agenda. Item M1 is a resolution to amend Resolution 15,790 to modify a contract with Enterprise FM Trust to lease 48 vehicles for the Little Rock Police Department. Would you, Madam Clerk, would you read the?
Get to add it.
There is a motion and a second to add item M1 to the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, and we'll add the item. Before we read the consent agenda, though, we do have 2 cards, and I think we agreed ahead of time that we would go ahead and ask the resident to speak on these 2 cards, and then we will proceed as we normally do and read the consent agenda altogether. So we have on item number 2, Osiris Bali.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak on item number 2 about implementing the hiring incentive for police officers. To me, this is another attempt to prioritize one group of first responders over everyone else. I don't know and I don't understand why should police officers be prioritized over other first responders. We can create a better culture in our police department by giving out. We can't create a better culture in your police department by giving out sign-in bonuses. That is a short-term solution to a problem that exists because of failure in leadership and a culture where community input is not valued and community engagement does not exist unless photos are being taken on social media. You can't Instagram and Facebook your way into improving public safety. You can't model a military traditional approach to recruit new candidates if they aren't truly the right candidates. Statistically, police officers prevent less than 25% of crime. The proof is in the $12.5 million invested in a substation on 12th Street, but we have not seen improvements in crime rates on 12th Street after $12 million. Because the city refuses to address the root causes. Take that signing bonus money and invest in social services, mental health support, education, affordable housing, and job training that can prevent crime by addressing underlying factors that contribute to criminal behavior. These are long-term solutions that change the community. Redirect the funds toward community-based initiatives such as violence prevention programs, neighborhood mediation, and youth engagement activities can create safer environments without increasing police presence. We need to invest in activities that promote trust among residents and not a real-time crime center arcade for the police department. Leave the surveillance efforts to other people. We need more long-term sustainability plans, budgetary prioritization in 2025, and alternative measures for public safety, not more money going down the drain at the Little Rock Police Department. So I think you all need to listen to the people of the community. We're talking about giving out signing bonuses. If we're not giving signing bonuses to all the first responders, then what's the excuse? We need to invest that money back into the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bali. And I'm going to ask you if you would turn around and come back up, and you have a card on item 10. Yes, sir.
All right, so hello again. Item 10 is addressing the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, $6.6 million. And once again, I believe we're diverting those funds, reallocating it back to public safety officials. When I hear public safety, once again, I'm thinking about salaries for more police officers. So here's a few things that I think we can look at with those American Rescue Plan Act dollars, using them what they were truly meant for. Once again, we're talking about more affordable housing development, to construct and renovate affordable housing units, to address insecurity and homelessness, more small business support. A lot of businesses had to shut down due to the pandemic. A lot of them were local-owned businesses that have been in our communities for years. Providing grants and loans to small businesses that are impacted by the pandemic, particularly in those communities that were neglected and underserved. More public health infrastructure to upgrade our public health facilities, clinics, even still vaccination sites. Mental health services, we cannot leave this to the police officers as well, too. We need to have more fundamental mental health services that address the increased, due to the demand of the pandemic, many more people are experiencing traumatization and mental health issues. Workforce development, I've mentioned in the past, and I've talked before you all about developing a year-round employment program for youth and young adults. Similar to the summer program, which is a great program, I'll keep mentioning that. Also, we want to, invest in the job training and reskilling programs, particularly in the healthcare and technology and in other fields with trades. Money to violence prevention programs as well, too, but ran by community members and experts, not our police officers. The digital divide, there was an opportunity to address that during the pandemic when many of the kids were going to school virtually. Contrary to popular belief, every kid does not have access to the internet. They don't have Chromebooks, they don't have iPads, they don't have computers at their homes. So this is another way we can ensure those kids who are going to school, who have to miss school some days, they have the opportunity to go to school and expanding broadband access. Developing green infrastructures, more community gardens. We do a lot of work around the community and community gardens. They're providing food for people, especially in areas that are experiencing food apartheid, urban forestry, and environmental sustainability. These all address mental health and public health issues. Transportation improvements as well, too. We have a Rock Region Metro, but the hours are not 24 hours. So we have opportunities to include more bus routes that don't run on a 45-minute increment. They can run more if they have more money in that department in that area. So increasing the mobility and reducing emissions. Educational support, we all know our schools could use more support, the public schools in particular. And, this will address the learning loss issues, like I mentioned earlier, enhancing remote learning infrastructures and supporting students with their mental health needs. Food apartheid, insecurity programs. These are great. I heard about a new thing going around with a mobile grocery store. A lot of people don't know about that. This is an opportunity to improve that and expand it into more areas and more wards that are actually going through food insecurity. Community revitalization, investing into our underserved communities, our parks, our streets, public facilities, climate resiliency projects. We need issues that address the flood control. We have energy efficient building efforts that need to be addressed as well too. And then last thing I'll mention, public Wi-Fi spaces. A lot of kids, in particular, Main Library is closed down right now. I know the kids at East End use that place as an after-school program and a place to do homework where their parents are getting off work and attempting to get to the Main Library, but it's shut down right now. So we got a lot of kids running around the River Market waiting on their parents. We need public Wi-Fi spaces so maybe they could do something productive while they're waiting on their parents, besides waiting for the Main Library to reopen after the renovation. So I just mentioned about 15 or 16 things that the ARPA funds could address. The last thing I'll mention is it definitely could be used to address for utility assistance. You all know very well about Summit price gouging for the last 2 years, as well as energy, which is now telling people they're getting credit back for the money they overspent, which is really just saying we overcharged you, we're gonna give you a little bit of that back. Utility assistance is a big thing here, and I feel like people will really appreciate that since the price gouging has gone on so much during the pandemic. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bali. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda along with item M1.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Bear Commercial Playgrounds, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $70,670.45 plus applicable taxes and fees for the resurfacing of the Cafe Africa Playground and the installation of shade sails at the Little Rock Zoo and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to implement a hiring incentive program for police officers and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to implement a hiring incentive program for 911 communication operators and for other purposes. A resolution to appropriate $500,000 from the Technology Park Special Project to the Central Arkansas Technology Authority and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with H.W. Tucker Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $719,455.20 for Walker Street drainage and for other purposes, funding from the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Gene Summers Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $462,938.40 for Zion Square improvements and for other purposes, funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. A resolution to identify projects in the John Barrow Road corridor for capital projects funded from the Targeted Community Development Program and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution number 15,912, February 21st, 2023, to authorize the city manager to execute an amendment to the construction management services agreement with Baldwin and Shell Construction in an amount of $388,434 for a final guaranteed maximum price of $7,274,725 for the Little Rock Police Department headquarters project and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution number 16,316, May 21st, 2024, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Olson Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $104,800 to provide engineering consulting services at City Class 1 landfill and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 15,783, September 6, 2022, and Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 15,847, December 20th, 2022, to change allocations for 4 primary intended uses of a portion of the second tranche of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas allotment of local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into agreements with federal, state, county, and municipal law enforcement agencies to exchange record management systems, RMS data, and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 15,790, September 20th, 2022, to authorize the city manager to modify the contract with Enterprise FM Trust in an amount not to exceed $331,436.35 to lease 48 vehicles for the Little Rock Police Department and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda passes. I'm not sure how to.
I think it's on. So
It is on. I guess you don't show up here. You just automatically, your microphone turns red. So Acting City Manager Cox, will you share some information with us?
Oh, you got to hit your button again. I think it went on.
there we go. Before we go to the grouped items, I just wanted to point out that item 20 on your agenda is a budget amendment to allow for the projects that were originally to be funded with American Rescue Plan Act dollars will instead be funded with general fund money. So we are still moving forward with those projects. We've just switched the funding sources. So that will be $3 million for the senior center, $2.1 million for the new fire station in West Little Rock, which is the specific fire department capital need, $1 million for a drainage project, and $500,000 for infrastructure. So thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. And to those who are in the audience, this is only the second time we've been back at City Hall. We have a new system. We're not quite used to it yet, so just please bear with us for a couple more meetings. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the grouped items, and I would like to point out that I do have cards on one of the grouped items.
Okay.
So if you would read the grouped items for the.
An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a revised plan office development titled Our House Revised POD located at 302 East Roosevelt Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a revised plan commercial development titled Rowan Development Revised PCD located at 12210 West Markham Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned development commercial titled Woo Bank Hair Salon Revised PDC located at 14104 Taylor Loop Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a planned commercial development titled Central Acquisitions LLC, revised PCD, located at 14410 Cantrell Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a planned development commercial titled Divine PDC located at 9814 Davmar Drive, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned revised plan development commercial titled Kaufman Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a planned development residential titled ALRM Little Rock PDR located at 3301 West Capitol Avenue, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget to reflect expenditure adjustments for the general fund as it pertains to the American Rescue Plan Act, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Action Target for the installation of a rubber trap berm on the Little Rock Police Department firing range. First reading.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinances to the second reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, in light of the fact of the membership, let it be noted that all 8 people voted, since there's only 8. The machine, yeah, I will never have any fault with anybody who tries to figure out anything with technology. There's only 8 members here. It takes 8 to go to the second reading. You can vote, but I think we need to note that the vote to proceed was unanimous when it is, so there will be no question. And
Do you think we should, would you prefer that we do a roll call?
no, I just think you can state
Okay.
it was a unanimous vote, and the fact that nobody says it wasn't will mean that it is, but the record's going to have that, and the clerk can put that in the record.
Madam Clerk, will you let the record reflect that it was a unanimous vote? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a revised plan office development titled Our House Revised POD located at 302 East Roosevelt Road. An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development and to establish a revised plan commercial development titled Rowan Development Revised PCD located at 12210 West Markham Street. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned development commercial titled Woobank Hair Salon Revised PDC located at 14104 Taylor Loop Road. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned commercial development titled Central Acquisitions LLC Revised PCD located at 14410 Cantrell Road. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled Divine PDC located at 9814 Davmar Drive. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a revised planned development commercial titled Kaufman Road. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned development residential titled ALRM Little Rock PDR located at 3301 West Capitol Avenue. An ordinance to amend the Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget to reflect expenditure adjustments for the general fund as it pertains to the American Rescue Plan Act, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Action Target for the installation of a rubber trap berm on the Little Rock Police Department firing range. Second reading.
We have a motion and a second to place the ordinance is on third and final reading. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record reflect that it was unanimous. Third reading, please, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a revised planned office development titled Our House Revised POD located at 302 East Roosevelt Road. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a revised planned commercial development titled Rowan Development Revised PCD located at 12210 West Markham Street. An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled Woobank Hair Salon Revised PDC located at 14104 Taylor Loop Road. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned commercial development titled Central Acquisitions LLC Revised PCD located at 14410 Cantrell Road. An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled Divine PDC located at 9814 Davmar Drive. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a revised planned development commercial titled Kaufman Road. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a planned development residential titled ALRM Little Rock PDR located at 3301 West Capitol Avenue. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas ordinance number 22,343, December 5th, 2023, to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget ordinance to reflect expenditure adjustments for the general fund as it pertains to the American Rescue Plan Act to declare an emergency. An ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Action Target for the installation of rubber trap berm on the Little Rock Police Department firing range, third and final reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We've had 3 readings, but before we go to a vote, I have actually got 2 cards. First of all, on item number 15, Jess Griffin. Item 19, Joe White. Item 19, Joe White. I'm sorry. Or will you, can you text somebody and ask them to? Thank you. He Okay. We've had 3 readings. I see no questions from the board and no cards. So all those in favor of the passage of the ordinance indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passed unanimously.
And we do have an emergency clause on item 20.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the emergency clause on item 20. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record reflect that the emergency clause passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item 22.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a revised planned commercial development titled Cantrell West Retail Center, PCD, located at 15122 Cantrell Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes, first reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinances to second reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect that the motion passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a revised planned commercial development titled Cantrell West Retail Center, PCD, located at 15122 Cantrell Road, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinances to third reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect that that passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, third reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development and to establish a revised planned commercial development titled Cantrell West Retail Center, PCD, located at 15122 Cantrell Road, third and final reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do have cards on this item. I have cards for and against, and I will start with the cards for Jess Griffin. John Reese.
We've already passed.
Mayor, while that's happening, I understand there's some people in the room whose item has already passed that just came in and may not have heard it in another room. And they're welcome to stay, but they might find life more exciting outside of the boardroom.
I didn't have any, the only two cards I had on all of the previous items were the cards that I called out and the speakers that we had, so I didn't have any cards.
Okay.
We ask them, do they fill out cards? We gotta tell them. Hadn't happened yet.
I think Director Wyrick's going to check on that. Mr. Reese, would you like to go ahead?
She said we have one more clarification.
Good afternoon. Good to see all y'all here. I'm John Reese. I'm the developer of the project on Cantrell Road, 115, 122 Cantrell Road, called the Cantrell West Shopping Center, with one restaurant next to the Tzatziki's out there with the drive-in around. And I've been working with these fine gentlemen here, Jimmy, Dick, and Gray, with the neighborhood for the last 4 to 5 years. It's been an ongoing process, and I think we've come to a conclusion that we can make this work. And so I just wanted to come up and say that we would like this to be passed, I guess, according to what we're going to turn in. I think we're going to turn in some paperwork right here that wants to be read into the record as what the rules that we're going to follow. And the main sticking point, we'd gone through all of it the last 2 or 3 couple of weeks with Cappy's help and Lance over here. They've helped us get through this, and so we appreciate them and their guidance. So, but we came to a conclusion on the site plan that we all agree on the site plan, and we agreed on the one restaurant on the east end has got the drive-through. It's next to Tzatziki's. And then the other, the building, that's the retail building, it just is, doesn't have a drive-through. It backs up against, there's a rock wall back, that will be back there. And it got down to, we had 2 uses that we wanted to have included on here. And these fine gentlemen here were kind enough to work with us to allow that. I have another shopping center on Chenault Parkway that we've been diligently working on to lease over the last 3 years. And I told everybody that, you know, most of the people that call us need to have restaurant space. There's just very few retail, you know, like clothing, other things like that. So we've asked them if we could have a percentage of 70%, and they've just agreed to that we could have that. I think we can find somebody else to put in there. But I'll let Jimmy will say something about it too. So we appreciate y'all supporting us. Like I said, it's been a long time. We've been dealing with this for about 4 to 5 years. And so I'm gonna let Jimmy take the floor and let him answer. If you want to ask me questions, you can ask me.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. So Tom, what would be the procedure here? Do they need to officially read it in the record, or can we receive it and amend it? What's the procedure?
Because the matter has come to you without what they're about to offer in it, then we'll have to actually ask that those conditions be put in place, because that will be more restrictive than what has been brought before. And if we demand it, then it becomes a taking.
Okay.
The other thing I would recommend to the board is that we will write all of these down, and hopefully you'll bring us a copy.
I have 20 copies right here.
Just one. But the actual final ordinance will include those as additions to the ordinance, and that way there will not be questions.
And you feel comfortable that the applicant,
The moment he tells me that he's done it of his own volition at the time, I will feel comfortable with it.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I'll say something.
Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you, John. My name is Jimmy Brown. I live at 15621 Sorrells Road. I am literally 18 feet from the property. Full disclosure, I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, but I'm not here in that capacity. And every time this has come up, I've removed myself from the room so as not to do any influence. We've worked with John for the past several years. I think we've all gotten to know each other far better than we ever wanted to. Things that we're asking for at a high level. And then when we get to the uses, I'm not going to go through all the uses we have, but I will mention the two things that John just mentioned, just to verify that we as neighbors are in support. And this will be number 3 on this list that I will hand out. And just so you know, Director Peck has a copy, Mr. Reese has a copy, Acting Planning Director Brad Jordan has a copy. So everybody's got the same copy of this document, so hopefully that'll satisfy everybody. This is all on the up and up. The first thing we've asked for is language saying that any access to Rummel Road, which is where all our houses are, permanently gated Knox box emergency use only. Ms. Reese, read that again. We really appreciate that one. There are, let's see, number 2 was the hours of uses. We have asked for the uses to be nothing open before 7 a.m. with the exception of a donut shop. And the other things to be lights out by 10 o'clock to be consistent with Tzatziki's to the west, but we have agreed to an exception of if there is an emergency care center there, that to stay open until 11. The other thing we've asked for is for the 2 driveways on Rummel, or excuse me, on Cantrell. Sorry, 2 driveways on Cantrell, for the east one to be right turn only, meaning the one in the east is entrance only, the one in the west is exit only. That'll help take care of some of the neighbors' concerns about the additional driveways there. Our number 6 condition, which Mr. Reese mentioned, there's a sketch map that he provided to Mr. Williams. I understand that'll be incorporated. We want that in there because again, it's clear. And the final one is the uses, which are listed out here. I won't read them off to you because there's 62 of them and that might take a while. What we are agreeing to do is number 1, it says in this document that it's 1 additional eating place besides the restaurant. What we're agreeing to is 70% of the retail center to be restaurant space that may sell alcohol. The other, and that is actually under uses, the C1 uses, that is letter, I believe, sorry, I circled it in my copy here. I believe it's letter R, but I might get that wrong. Hang on a second. Where'd it go here? Sorry, I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing. Yes, it's letter R on the uses under C1. He's also asked for 1 liquor store, and we've agreed to that. I could not find in the time we had this afternoon where that corresponds to the city code for zoning, but we did agree to that. And those are the 2 changes we've agreed to. I've had a conversation with Mr. Jordan. I think we're all in agreement. So if we're all good with that, we would actually, myself, Mr. Stoker, Mr. Williams, we're no longer opposed. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We may ask you to come back if we have any questions. I have 3 cards against the item, and I'll call on those residents now. We'll let these folks speak, and then we'll take your questions. Jimmy Brown?
That's me.
So you're not speaking against the
Well,
item?
as I said, I filled out the card.
Okay.
I was against when I walked in, but we had negotiations in the hall after the card that cleared all this up.
Okay, Richard Stoker?
I defer to Jimmy, same thing. We originally thought that we would have to be against this, but based on what we just said, I'm for it.
Okay, and Gray Williams? Ditto. Okay, so all the cards who were against it are no longer against it. Director Peck,
Thank you. Yes, that's what I was trying to get across. I'm so relieved and so happy, and thank you, John, and your team, and thank you to the neighbors. We can finally, Lance, aren't you excited? But this is, I think, a perfect example of when a developer listens and works with the neighborhood. And we really didn't know until about an hour or two ago that we would come to this agreement. So congratulations, John. I think it's going to be a great development. And I'm so happy that I don't have to deal with this anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pack. Director Hines?
Thank you. To term the colonel from the A team, I love it when a plan comes together. Appreciate all you guys' work on this, and I guess we'll have to have an annual reunion at whatever restaurant or bar opens up in the spaces. We can all meet there. You can walk home, Jimmy, and it'll be fine.
Mayor,
But I appreciate a good vote on this.
Ticket goes to John.
Mayor,
Okay, thank
He's
you.
buying.
Thank you, Director Hines. I see no more questions. We have no more cards.
Mayor.
All those in
Whoa,
favor?
whoa. Mr. Reese needs to come back and say he agrees to that. And what I would recommend is that he and the people that listed themselves as objectors all sign it, give it to the clerk, and so you're going to have to give up at least one of them. And then we will finish the inclusion of the language as conditions in the ordinance, and that's what will be signed tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Would it be helpful if I had one of these documents and we can all four just kind of sign that and note the exception, those other two changes? And would that be helpful? Or should we do that?
I really think you ought to do it in the open meeting that's on camera, and he makes the request, and please.
Okay, I'm going to make, I agree with what Jimmy Brown and Dick and Gray said on the changes that we had with the liquor store, adding 70% of the total square footage of the larger building being able to be restaurants. And I really do appreciate, they've really been a great help to us getting this through. And you can't believe how relieved that we're going to be that we can finally develop that piece of property out there. And we promise it's going to be a really great center, and y'all can all come out for lunch sometime and we'll feed all of you. So anyway, but that's what I want to try to recommend, that we follow those guidelines on this. We're certainly willing to sign off on all the information and the different rules that we've already agreed to. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Mr. Carpenter, is this adequate?
It's your request that we make these a part of the ordinance, is that correct?
Yes, please make these changes a part of the ordinance, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so now we have had all the comments, the questions, the changes, the three readings. So all those in favor of passage of the ordinance, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, we see that we have no one opposed. The ordinance passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, if you would, and thank you all for working this out. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item 23.
An ordinance to approve a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned development commercial titled Paranova LLC STR2 PDC located at 15 Oakwood Drive, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinance to second reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll move to a second reading. It was unanimous. Okay. Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled Paranova LLC STR2 PDC located at 15 Oakwood Drive. Second reading.
There's a motion, a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinances to third reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? With a unanimous vote, we will move to third reading. Madam Clerk, third reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development to establish a planned development commercial titled Paranova LLC STR2 PDC located at 15 Oakwood Drive, third and final reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I do have one card. Andrew, you? Is that correct? You're recognized.
Good evening. This is my first time. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah, my name is Andrew Yu. I'm a real estate investor. I buy and flip homes. Today I'm standing in front of you, board members, to request to apply and to rezone my property on 15 Oakwood from R2 to PDC. I just want to ask if you guys have any questions.
Director Adcock, do you have a question? Okay. Is Mr. Jordan here? Thank you. And there were several people who were not here last week, and just so you, in case you don't remember or you weren't here, this item was on the agenda, and we agreed to defer it till tonight because the applicant was not present at the last meeting. Mr. Jordan requested that the applicant come tonight. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Jordan the same questions that I asked 2 weeks ago, so those in the room can hear. Mr. Jordan, can you tell me how many short-term rentals we have in that neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am. Within 1 mile of this property, there are 10 adopted STRs.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And even though I am chairing the meeting as the representative from Ward 3, I would comment that I did go door to door in the neighborhood, knocked on several doors. There were a couple of people who said they didn't care whether or not it became a short-term rental, but there were a couple of people who were very opposed to it becoming a short-term rental. They were not able to attend the meeting tonight, so I just wanted to be clear about that to members of the board. Director Miller, do you have a question about this item?
Yes, I do.
Just a second. No.
Yes, I do. And I think the gentleman who said there are 10 short-term rentals within a mile of this.
Mr. Jordan, yes, he said 10 within a mile.
10 within a mile. A mile is a long, I mean, it's a real long circumference that you're talking about here. I'm looking at this site plan on Oakwood, on Cantrell. How many oppose this within this neighborhood that I'm looking at?
I believe this was on consent when it went through Planning Commission, so there was no opposition at Planning Commission for this.
Okay, so when you say a mile north, south, east, west?
It's a radius.
A radius?
Yes, sir.
What about the neighborhood?
Within, let's see.
I mean, I'm talking about the street, the blocks.
Within a quarter of a mile, there are no STRs. Within a half a mile, there was one. There were 2 additional within half a mile and 3/4 of a mile, 1 pending and 3/4 of a mile of the site. So when we went back and looked at everything and went back with the planning department, we figured out that in that mile radius around this area, there are 10 that are in Ward 3.
So on Oakwood Road, where this property is located, this block, are there any STRs on this block?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. And we have no neighbors who are here tonight. I will remind you all that the woman who lives next door has a small baby. She is opposed to it. The person about 3 doors down didn't care. The person across the street was opposed and sent me an email about it. The person next door to that individual was also opposed. It's not really a neighborhood that's very organized, and that's why they didn't go to the Planning Commission to speak, and that's why they're not here tonight. As the
Okay.
applicant, would you like to make any final comments?
I want to say I applied, I would say around March or April, but it's been delayed for a long time, the whole summer. So I probably would have be able to put on the agenda earlier than now. That's the only thing. But and the other thing is, as far as operation goes, I would like to hear about, their possibility for them, the reason for them to oppose to it, and then I'll be happy to, answer any questions. And if you could tell me the reason, I can answer and address those concerns.
Director Hines?
Thanks. Are you currently operating it as an STR? Or,
Yes.
so you already are currently up. So how did you come to realize you needed to be rezoned?
Well, just kind of recent thing. It was already planning to buy the property, fixing it, and then the ordinance came out, so I had to apply for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. To answer your question, the neighbor, the closest neighbor was not happy about having a constant turnover of people in the home next door to her.
I see. Okay.
That was the general complaint.
I see. Well, to address that, I think it's not whether the person is stranger or not. It's the quality of the people that they're living with, right? So as far as tenant goes, short-term rental, what I have found is compared to long-term rental, tend to be higher quality of guests or tenants. The reason I do this is because we have a higher screening on, who will be allowed to go into our homes, because that is our investment. And the last thing we want is, and the immediate effect on it will be on us, is our investment. First of all, would be our furnitures being damaged. And then, of course, the rest of it, it's on the property. So we don't want just, anyone to be in our homes. That's, I would say it's the quality of the people that's be there instead of just anyone. Because if you think about long-term rentals, if a landlord placed a bad tenant in there, the neighbor's going to be stuck with a bad tenant for a year at least. There's nothing they can do about it. Even if they don't like the person that's staying there, they're going to be gone in a couple of days.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You have Thank you. Are there any additional questions by members of the board? Okay, seeing no additional questions, we've had 3 readings. All those in favor of passage of the ordinance, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ordinance passes. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item 24.
An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development to establish a planned commercial development titled Local Fairs Exchange and Storage PCD located on the south side of Baseline Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to place the ordinance on second reading. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion fails, so we will not go to a second reading. Director Adcock?
Yes, I am voting no because this applicant has been before us twice before. I've asked questions both times, and I still have not got answers on all of my questions. We hold the people that have food canteens. There are certain rules that we try to hold them to. These individuals are not being held to the same rules that we are holding other individuals, particularly in Southwest Little Rock too, containing stuff about the sewage off of these vehicles. Also that they do not have to leave at night. And I would like to make sure that we're holding everyone to the same level, and not just because some people are maybe a little bit fancier or doing a little bit more, that they do not have to follow all the rules. So until we're all playing the same game and everything, I will not support this.
Thank you, Director Adcock. Director Wyrick? You are? You are?
Thank you. I'm a little surprised it didn't make it off of first reading. We've not had an opportunity to hear the applicant and him present his story. I've met with them, and some of the things that they're doing, I'm good with. The storage units, the office, those things that they're preparing for on this application. The thing that gives me pause is the food court and the activities around there. I asked in the last meeting that, I didn't really have a definite time of day that it was going to be open. I think in the write-up it said 6:30 to 8:30 for the food court. And there was a question about the fencing around the property. And so I would like to have those things nailed down. The church next door is concerned about alcohol sales inside the food court, because they do have a school and a church that abuts this property. So those are a couple of things that I would like to see answers to and resolution to. In another thing is I'm not sure about the access into the property. I don't think they're going to be doing any street improvements. Apparently, the highway department indicated that it didn't need to be done, so I'm a little bit concerned about access of trailers that are coming, food trucks that are coming in there, and then access into the storage unit. So I'd like some more information on that.
Thank you, Director Wyrick. So for the applicants, because it does not go to a second reading tonight, it will go to a second reading at the next board meeting, which will be in 2 weeks. But you've heard some additional questions, and hopefully you will come back and have answers to those questions at the next board meeting. Any other questions from anybody? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read item 25?
An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
Suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinance to second reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that it passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Please suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinance to a third reading. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, let the record show that that passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, third reading.
An ordinance to reclassify property located in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have several cards. Let me Get organized here. Charlotte James. Director Wyrick, you wanted to speak before we heard from the residents?
Yeah, I did. We had a group of folks that were sequestered in the back room. Is the reason why I was late getting to the podium tonight. But the information that was put out by staff, no problem with you, Brad, but it was not descriptive as to what was happening at that location. It showed 55 acres, and it showed light industrial, multifamily, open space with no delineation as to how much of that property was being rezoned. And I'd like for Mr. White or someone from his group to talk to us about what this parcel is, how it's going to be split up. He's got a map. I think you can hold it up and kind of describe what's going on that looks a lot different than what was in our information. So I think it might be helpful for others.
Mr. White has a card, and I was going to call on him in a minute.
I think maybe this might help with some of the questions that are going to come up, is what I'm thinking. But you're in charge, so you do what you want to do.
If you think it would be helpful.
I really think it might be helpful, honestly.
Okay. Would that be agreeable to you all if we could hear from Mr. White, if Director Wyrick thinks that would be helpful to move the discussion along? Okay. Thank you. Mr. White.
Well, thank you, Director Wyrick. I would love to speak to you first because we really didn't know that we had any opposition. I wouldn't even call it opposition, questions about the application until about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Mm-hmm. We were able to meet with the neighbors before the meeting for maybe 30 minutes. And the map that's in that write-up is misleading. And so I may have 2 of these, but let me have to figure out the new room here. Do I go? If I wanted to pass this around.
Yeah.
And also let me back up and say, with me today, I've got George Kress with Riggs Caterpillar, and I've got Mr. Ted Dickey, who is Riggs' agent on this project. I think the questions that the neighbors asked really didn't have a lot to do with the application. There's a lot of issues in the neighborhood. There's a detox center down the street that's a big problem. There's flooding in Brody Creek that is a big problem. But as we talked, they realized that our application really is not, I think as they come up, they'll say basically that they don't have a problem with what's happening here, which is we've got some existing apartments that are going to get zoned for multifamily. We've got 38 acres that is woods that is going to get zoned industrial so that Riggs Caterpillar can build a facility there. And so I think they realized as they looked at this that the zoning application was really not their issues. They just have some issues. They're very concerned about this being rezoned and becoming another detox center, which it's not. What I can tell you about the church is the church is going to remain, and they are not going to sell their property or have it rezoned for something that could be a detox center, a gentleman's club, anything like that. This is going to be a very nice development. And so we traded cell phone numbers. They've got my card. I'm going to help one lady with her house who's having some structural issues. I think we kind of bonded, let's just say that. So it was really a great meeting. And again, I wish it could have happened a week ago and not this afternoon. So can I reserve my time and maybe respond to some questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White, and thank you, Director Wyrick. Charlotte James.
Hello. I'm Charlotte. I kind of made myself acquainted with,
Pull the mic down just a
oh, I'm
little.
short, okay.
Thank you.
I made myself acquainted with B.J. Warwick, and my concern is the zoning. Yes, he explained that part. How will that affect my area? That's on Lakeside Drive, and it's 72204. Also, the other concern that I have is there is a freshly renewed transitional home that's in our neighborhood. First of all, we didn't know it was there. Some of us didn't. It has been there about approximately 6 months plus, I'll say. They were not, they never had a meeting with us. The first meeting was at 12 o'clock in the day. I showed up. I had a daughter that was on the phone with me. I questioned them about a permit and how would it affect my property value. I also stated that I had seen more traffic and more people in the neighborhood. Where we live is very serene, I'll use that word. And when you see people walking down the streets with a backpack, when you get out of your car, going up a hill, and they seem like they're in a trance, you wonder what's going on. So later on, I started seeing different things, and some of the other neighbors can tell you what they have seen. And recently, more than recently, about 2 weeks ago, I saw someone standing on the corner with their cell phone in the dark. They don't live in my neighborhood. Before I got to him, there was another man standing on Western Hills, just standing. Okay, so I'm still observing, and the rest of us are. My concern is how can, and we talked about this, and we've been keeping in contact, and you might can explain better than I can, but they were not properly licensed. They had issued a citation, and I understand that they were supposed to correct that. The number of people that they told me that they had in the house was 9. The house is not large enough for 9 people, to be honest. I took a tour, a slight tour. I didn't go upstairs, but I went to the bedroom that was on the first floor, and it had 3 beds in it. That wasn't adequate, I would think. I also expressed my concern because I said, well, where you have a transitional home, drug, treatment and all that, with just women, you're going to have a problem. Where there are women, there are going to be some men. There are going to be some drug dealers. That's my realism. That's the way I feel. That whole thing has really changed the flow of the neighborhood. Then I had this idea. I saw something else very strange. I saw this group of teenagers go in another house. I said, something is going on. And no one was canvassed. That neighborhood was not canvassed. No one knew anything until we got this letter on July 1, 12 o'clock. The next letter I got, that some of us got, was the meeting on Friday, the 8th or 9th. And on that incident, they canceled. But they didn't notify anyone. They put a sign on the door, meeting canceled, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into all the detail. So I got on the phone with several of the neighbors. We wanted to know why. So I talked to a young man, and he's not here, I don't think, I haven't seen him, that's supposed to be over the transitional home. I also talked with Mr. Porter and Mr. Flint, who work with the correctional system, and in that first meeting. So my concern is that we don't, and I'll let other people express their own feelings about it, that we prefer not having that there, because there are other areas in Little Rock that would be more accessible for them. They don't have to get in a van. They don't have to walk. And it just messes up the flow of the neighborhood, and I don't feel very secure. I'm a widower, so my kids check on me. And I do care about people, but I think that is not an appropriate area. That's my opinion. So,
Thank you. Ms. Thomas? And let me ask, Director Wyrick, did you have a comment? Will you press your button again?
We're going to make this work. I just wanted to say that you and I have been in conversation about this issue, and I think yesterday was the last time we talked. But this area is not close to where you live. You're on down Colonel Glenn Road in Western Hills, aren't you?
no, I live on 53 Lakeside Drive.
That's on down a little further. That is in the Western Hills area, yes.
Right.
So
This-
off of Western Hills.
Yeah,
Road.
yeah. This location is a long ways away from
No, it's
where
not.
you are.
I'm telling you, it's like 4 houses up the hill from my house, and I've
No.
been in there.
Okay, you're talking about where the rehab place?
Yes.
Okay, I'm talking about this application that we're talking about
Okay,
tonight
sorry.
is not close to you. Okay.
That's not, but my question is and was, is that going to affect my neighborhood, the rezoning of that area? Will it affect our area?
The people that are here tonight are Pecan Lake and Tall Timber, the area, it's on Stagecoach Road, and you're quite a distance from where this is. And I think when we hear their testimony tonight, they possibly have decided that it's not an impact on them as well. But I do appreciate your comments, and I understand the situation that you're going through, and we're going to keep in touch as this application progresses. It was supposed to go, they were supposed to apply to the Planning Commission, I think, yesterday. I don't know if they did or not, but we'll work with you on what we can do about that location.
Well, we would appreciate that, and if,
Yeah.
would you like to hear from someone else?
Thank you.
Director Wyrick, may I follow? I want to ask Director Wyrick a question before we hear from everybody else.
Okay.
So it seems to me that the opposition is to the transitional housing, not to the item number 25. Is that correct?
Right.
But I
Right.
just had a concern about that item. And that's what I was stating. How close was that to us as well?
It's not
Okay.
very
It won't
close.
affect our zone, it won't change our zone, that's what I'm
No.
saying.
This would be no impact to you.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Thomas,
That was what I'm concerned too, about the transitional home.
the transitional home. Dr. Williams?
Yeah, I think what they're doing, good evening, everyone. And, I'm Dr. Williams, you know, I represent, Western Hills, Westwood. I got several calls from the people in the neighborhood that are more concerned with the transition home more so than the audience here. But then I got some people from the, Pecan Lake and that area there also called me concerning what's going on. I think they need more clarification of what's happening, clarification of what's need to go on in the neighborhood, because they want to know how much is this going to affect their neighborhood in the Pecan Lake area, Western Hills, and the rezoning of, as the gentleman said, the rezoning of the church, because the neighborhood used the church to have their meeting. They use both churches, and then we have a youth football team that come and work out and play football there. So they want to know how much is it going to affect them and affect their neighborhood. And then they was also concerned about, and this is something I think that's totally different, that the transition home, because they are very concerned about that, because they live next door. Many people live next door, so they are very concerned about that, and that's why they're, you know, they call me about it. And 12 o'clock at night, I think I was gonna call BJ one time at 12 o'clock and have her do a three-way, but I don't think she answered the phone. So, and but the people's they are very concerned about that, and so they would just like to have more information. How much would it affect them? Miss Ruby, I think Ruby I can't remember her last name, but it's Ruby. She was also text me concerning about it because they want to know what's happening and they want to know how would it affect them. That's their only concern.
Thank you. Thank you. Denise White? And Ms. White, is this also about the transitional housing?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
This is about the development that Mr. White is
Thank you.
working on. Good evening. I am a resident of Pecan Lake, and I'm here this evening to voice my concerns about this development. We had a meeting with Mr. White, and he showed us on the plat where everything is supposed to go. And one of the things that he stressed was that the Riggs company that's going to be put there, there's a line of trees that's going to be a buffer. Okay. In the fall, when those leaves fall, there goes the buffer. So my concern is noise. My concern is traffic. Right now, Stagecoach, Shackelford, there's a lot of traffic. Colonel Glenn, and when you're going to put a facility there with more workers coming out at 5 o'clock, it's already chaotic. Going down Colonel Glenn, Shackelford, those areas, because everybody coming from west going that way, that's the way they're coming if they're not on the freeway. We need wider roads because at 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 2-lane highway on Shackelford and on Colonel Glenn, it's bumper to bumper, a lot of wrecks. So I think that addition is just going to cause more problems. And to me, you're putting the cart before the horse. Fix the streets first. Don't wait till the traffic builds up and then say, oh, we should have, widened the streets. We should have done this. You need to widen those avenues where they're 4-lane. Get more people access to it, and there's not such a traffic buildup. At 36 in Shackelford, in my opinion, there should be a light there. It's a 4-way stop. It's chaotic, when you're in the mornings and in the afternoons. The other thing that I don't understand is why the need for these big major corporations and facilities around residential areas. Why can't they move further outside the city? Why you want to put them in the middle of town? You're causing traffic. How's it going to affect my property value? Can I resell my house? Because when somebody drives through there in the evenings, in the fall, where that buffer is gone with those trees, and they hear the noise, it's like, no, I don't want to live over here. I think there's a lot of things that have not been looked at as far as down the road in the future. Sounds good for today, but the people that live there now that own their homes, they paid them off. They don't want to move. How's it going to affect them? How's it going to affect the growth in the neighborhood? So those are just some of the concerns that I have about this facility coming in and how many employees they're going to have at that facility and how it's going to more impact the traffic in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Now we will hear from Mr. White. And if I may ask Mr. Jordan a question as Mr. White is coming up. Did I understand you correctly that the transitional house that was referred to by a number of people has not yet been to the Planning Commission?
It has not yet been to the Planning Commission. We basically learned about this, I guess, when the neighbors learned about it. Our enforcement officers have made contact with the group, and they are supposed to be making an application. They have not done that at this time.
Okay, and so to just add to that for the folks who are here, when they go to Planning Commission, if you're close neighbors, you will get notification of that correct? And then you
Yes,
would be
ma'am.
able to,
Yes, ma'am. The applicant is required to send out notice with everyone within 200 feet of the property. And we do an extra 100, so 300-foot radius of the property will be notified. But I'm sure if you're part of a neighborhood association, you'll get that information as well.
thank you for that clarification. I didn't want you all to think that we were not hearing you, but that was a separate item, or a different item. So I want to make sure y'all understand.
Yes, sir. We are aware of that issue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you. Just noting some of the questions, some of the issues. And I will say that if given the opportunity, I think George Kress is here with Riggs and would love to just say a few words. But the Riggs facility is going to go on the I-1 property. There's a 100-foot buffer, open space buffer, that runs north-south along the east side of that. That's what will buffer the residential from the business uses. All access for Riggs is going to go to Shackelford, not to Stagecoach. And when they come out of that facility, they're going to turn right and go north up to Colonel Glenn and turn left and get to the interstate. And so it really sets up well for the traffic pattern. They talked about the roads. As part of the development, Riggs will be required to widen Shackelford per the master street plan. It'll be an arterial street. Much of that through there is already widened because it's already developed. And so when they move in, you'll look up and see a 5-lane arterial street. And I said earlier, it was unfortunate that we didn't get contacted by the neighbors earlier because I think we could have worked through a lot of this. Buddy Ellis, who has the event center, reached out to us, and we went over and visited with him and walked his property and looked at what he had. But he was very happy that there was going to be a 100-foot undisturbed buffer between his property and Riggs. And he said, I'm happy that it's Riggs because they're a great company. I trust them. I know they'll do a great job here. Employees, and I saw this, it's, I think, 40 to 50 to start out and grows to 75 at some point. I don't know if I said this earlier, but all the work on this property will be done indoors, nothing outdoors. And so I think that's going to help with noise. So be glad to answer any questions. And again, would love to let George Kress just speak for a minute or two. If that's, he did not turn in a card, Vice Mayor, but maybe somebody will call on him.
if anybody has a question for him, they could address their question to him. So thank you. Director Hines, I have you as next. Do you have questions?
No, if you're online trying to pull up the land use plan and the sketch, they are not the right land use plan and sketches. The one, this, and I would ask, and Brad can nod his head if I can see him, is the underlying land use for the southern portion that's R2, is that land, future land use industrial?
I believe it is, yes, sir.
Okay, so we're following our land use plan on this. And then the most southern part, is that MF12, is that multifamily, it's already there, a non-conforming use? Is it because it used to be part of the
seminary.
It's part of the seminary, okay, all right. So that's why, so they're gonna reclassify that to match what it should actually be zoned. Okay, all right. There's a lot of moving parts here, and so I'm trying to make sure I got an understanding on it. So all the access will come off Shackford, and if I'm right, Joe, this is across the street from Little Rock Water Reclamation, there's warehouses, other stuff, and you're right, the west side of Shackelford's already been improved through that section, correct?
Yes,
So you
yes.
guys are going to improve, is it going to go all the way down to the, I guess what I'm saying is the improvements going to encompass the MF12, or is it going to just encompass the I-2 use?
We're just going to encompass the I-2.
Okay, that's fine.
or
That's
I-1,
what, I
yeah.
wouldn't expect you to do the multifamily because it's not part of it's just being rezoned. All right. So we're going to get improvement basically, how many linear feet of Shackelford is going to get improved?
Great
Do you know?
question. I don't have that. It's probably 1,000.
Okay, so the majority, because once you get up to the zoned, the industrial use that's already there, that's their property too, or is that a different property?
It's different property that was,
Okay.
yeah,
But so that's not going to improve. So just the section we're talking about, right?
that's correct.
Okay, but it's almost 1,000 feet.
Yes, and a quick note, I do believe the property north of us is going to develop as well.
Right.
We're
I think
working
it
on
looks
it,
like
so,
Robert Vogel owns it, so.
that's right.
Okay. All right, I've got a little deal up here. All right, so, and then yeah, I think you answered it. The big triangle place is the Ellis's, which is the event center, correct? So that'll preserve that, most of that buffer. So you guys are buffering and already buffered from the neighborhood. So what, from this northeast corner, what's the distance? Do you know the distance across Mr. Ellis's
I'm going to
property?
guess 400 or 500 feet.
Okay, so you've already got 400 or 500 feet of a natural buffer that, and then you guys are given another 100 feet before you get to the deal. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because I think they're confused. This northern piece of zoning is a lot closer to the neighborhood than and it looks like it's already zoned open space on the previous zoning. So
That's
we're just
correct.
talking about this area south, so we're talking about a 500 to 600 foot already existing buffer, another 100 feet added to that, and then all the traffic and improvements get made on Shackelford.
Exactly.
Am I understanding that
That's
correct?
right, yeah.
Brad, is that, all right. I just want to make sure. We had a lot of moving parts and a lot of discussion about this, so, all right, that's, you answered my question about the land use, so we're following our land use plan, showing that as in going from R2 to industrial. Because I would imagine if it's R2, it was probably annexed into the city as that because it wasn't already rezoned. All right, good deal. That's all I need. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hines. Director Wyrick?
Just wanted to respond a little bit. Joe's done a great job in describing what the project is. I met with Antioch Baptist Church, the pastor, Mr. White, Mr. Kresh. I know your mom and dad, but I can't think of your name. Anyway, we looked at the project, and what the church is trying to do is to, Dean's going to tell me what your name is.
Ted.
Ted. Okay, Ted. Thank you. Need a lot of help tonight. We looked at the project out there, and it looked to me like it was a good project. But what they're trying to do is to they've got some apartments that were used from the missionary seminary for the students, and so that really ought to be in a multifamily zoning, and so they set that zoning up. And then with the Rick's property on the back, that's definitely industrial. I ask a lot of questions about what their plans are, and it's a fantastic plan that they have to go in there. It'll be good jobs for the city, and the access to their property will be off of Shackelford. City of Little Rock is planning on revamping that intersection at Shackelford and Colonel Glenn. They have, it's in design now to make improvements, flows go through there, which will be helpful to anybody that's coming down Shackelford. I think they're adding a turn lane and better signalization, those kinds of things. But Antioch Baptist Church has been a good advocate for Southwest Little Rock. They're invested in the community. We hold a lot of meetings at the church. In fact, we've had sales tax meetings and all kinds of meetings at the church. They open their doors up for the community. I mean, they're not going to do anything that's going to hamper any kind of relationship with boys and girls clubs or anything in the community. are going to keep the church there. It's still going to be active for the time being. They're going to keep the school part of the seminary open and working. He is impacted by the facility across the street that has been a problem for the community. So it's been a problem for him too. And in no way is he going to do anything to add to the hardship that's already there. It's been kind of a confusing application, but it really makes sense to me. Riggs is going to go in the industrial part. We're going to have a small area for multifamily, which is already there. The church is staying, the seminary is staying. It's really pretty cut and dried, I think. Other than that, I'm going to support it. I think it's a good plan, and I just wanted to share the church's vision with everybody, including the neighborhood, if they're confused or concerned about what's going to happen with the church. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wyrick. Director Adcock.
Yes. What zoning is required for all of this? Is it all industrial?
Industrial and then multifamily, Director. On the apartments, the existing apartments are multifamily, and then the northern 38 acres is industrial.
Okay. And so the apartments will go to industrial?
No, ma'am, they'll go multifamily.
Okay. Is Riggs going to move the present location?
No, I don't believe so. This is an expansion.
This will be an expansion? Will they have the same items that they have at the original one?
I think this is a brand-new facility, totally separate and apart from what they're doing down there. They're going to refurbish used equipment and operate out of this property. So it's two different things. And George, if I say anything wrong, jump in. But
So the large pieces of heavy equipment will be at this location also?
They will. But again, all work inside.
Okay, will they have any boundaries or any lines that meets the neighborhood's housing? Tall timber?
Really, no. The only neighbor that's adjacent that's residential is Mr. Ellis. And I think Lance had that drawing. And thank you, Lance. It is sort of confusing, Director Adcock. It's an odd-shaped piece within other developments, and so.
There's the neighborhoods. This is the Ellis Event Center. That's tall timber up there. This is there just to here. They're putting in this 100-foot buffer. This is where the seminary multifamily already is that they're rezoning. This is the space they're going into. There's 600 feet.
Will there be any entrances and exits out on Shackelford?
Only on Shackelford, not going to go to Stagecoach over to the.
Everything will be on Shackelford?
Yes,
There'll be
ma'am.
no entrance or exits out on Stagecoach?
For the industrial. Now, the apartments, the MF12, they do exit on Rockwood to Stagecoach. But all of the new development that Riggs is doing exits onto Shackelford.
How close will the development be on Stagecoach? Is there a buffer there of trees or anything?
Well, honestly, our best buffer is Mr. Ellis's property. It's an amazing piece, but we'll have 100 feet, and then Mr. Ellis's property, which is where the event center is, and it varies because it sort of is a triangle, but I'm going to say, 500 or 600 feet minimum and up to a quarter of a mile once you get up to the north.
What neighborhoods was notified on this?
I'm sure Pecan Lake, Tall Timber, is there another third?
Yeah, we send it out to all of the registered neighborhood associations.
And so what we're required to do, Director, we
We've got some. Mayor, the lady back there would like to speak or be recognized to answer my question.
Director Adcock, didn't you got the information about which neighborhoods were not notified, correct? Okay.
Well, they told me which neighborhoods were notified, but evidently the residents in the back said they were not notified.
Okay. Is that correct, Mr. Jordan, that they were not notified?
We send to the certified neighborhood associations, we send out all of our documents to them to notify them of, hey, this is coming. But the notification, I don't want to misconstrue what that is. The notification from the applicant is certified mail to everyone within 200 feet of the property. Staff will send out our agenda and appropriate documents to neighborhood associations that are registered with the city.
If they're not registered with the city or not active, then their neighborhoods are not getting notified.
Okay. Thank you. Director Adcock, have you asked all your questions, and we'll go to the next?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. My concern about this ordinance is that I was given information that is not correct. My sketch is not correct. Zoning map is not correct. I don't know how I can make some solid decision based on the information that's been presented. Zoning map is good. This sketch shows Capitol Avenue. I mean, so I've heard talk about who's been talked to, but I've heard Ms. White come up and say she hadn't been talked to. Sounds like this could be worked out. I'm trying to get a vision of where this is because I think I know over where the water reclamation facility is and how that's zoned, but I'm not getting a real good feel. I guess it's going to be east of where the Little Rock Reclamation Authorities is. And it seems like it would be fine, but I mean, this information is not enough information the way that it should be presented to the board on this land use in this sketch. And then you're going to show me a zoning map now. It's just, I don't feel like this has been presented correctly. Not so much on behalf of you, Mr. White. I think I could probably support this just based on what I'm hearing, but I don't have this information right that's been presented from the staff. And then I'm hearing opposition from neighbors that you said, I wish I'd talked to them earlier, I wish I'd known. You can fix that. If we don't have to take some action on this, I'm not supporting this just based on that fact. I think it looks good, feels like it should be, but I think the staff's dropped the ball on this, and I think communication has been dropped on this also for not talking to these neighbors. I think it should be talked to. I mean, the first part about the Lakeside, I understand how, that's not applicable on this. But what I am looking at is information that's been presented to me as a director that's not correct. And then hearing that people have not been talked to. I'm not supportive of this just based on that. I think there's some more work to be done. I think it can come back and looks like a good project. But those things give me pause. And I don't want to vote on something and I have those questions about it. Sorry.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Director Miller. Director Campuris?
Director Miller, in light of what you said, if this is voted down, I don't know what's going to happen. If this is voted down, then the applicant has to wait a year. And it sounded like what you were saying is wait 2 weeks and let everybody talk again and come back. To do that, there would have to be a motion to defer the vote for 2 weeks. And then if that passes, that keeps it on the agenda. The 3 readings have been held, and then people can come back. I mean,
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I would like to hear from the other board members who have had their hands up for quite a while before we do that. Director Compuris.
Thank you. I think Mr. Carpenter spoke wisely, and I think we ought to table this for 2 weeks, and I'll make that motion.
Director Compuris has moved to defer this for 2 weeks or and is there a second? There's a motion and a second to table it for 2 weeks. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. The motion passes. This will be tabled for 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Hines, do you have additional comments?
From Pecan Lakes and Timber Ridge. The reason you guys weren't notified is this development is not within 200 feet of your neighborhood. And that's why you didn't get notified by the developer. We'll try to figure out why planning didn't send the proper notifications out, because you were close enough where planning should have notified you, but I think that's where the confusion is. I think we can get all this straightened out in 2 weeks, let them meet with you. But again, the error on our part up here is at the staff level with us not having the right documents for us to pull up and look at. And that's why when Joe passed that actual map around, I was like, this isn't, I knew it wasn't the right street. So we'll pause, pump the brakes. I talked to the developers, and I think we'd rather have a good decision on right information than a bad decision on wrong information. That'll give us some time for you guys to have deeper discussions with the developer and the neighborhood.
Make one statement? That 200 feet seems to be the death of us, because now you're wanting to put a commercial around us. We've already got a detox center that we don't want there, that poses, as far as I'm concerned, safety issues, because they kick those people out on the street when they don't adhere to the program, and they leave them out there to walk to wherever.
And I can tell you, just looking at the topo map, I don't have a line on it, but this development's probably not within 500 feet of your, and it's in an area that we already have. The land use shows this as industrial. That whole area up and down South Shackelford is industrial and warehouse. So it's following our plan. And I understand, but I don't think there's going to be negative impact to you guys, because y'all have got the Ellis property buffing you. Now, the next two properties north of this one are much closer to you guys. This property is much further south. So I think, but we'll have time to engage and make sure everybody understands what we're voting on. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hines. We will now move to citizen communication. And I would like to say that 3 of the cards for citizen communication are on the transitional housing. So I will ask you, and if you want to waive your time, since we've kind of gone over that and we know what the next steps are, or you can use your time. Dr. Williams?
Again, one of our biggest concern was that the people called me and said that they live next door. And they said these people are out of compliance with what's going on, so they're very concerned about that. And they don't want them to be in compliance. They don't want this in the neighborhood at all. That's what they don't want. And they're very, very concerned, and they express their concern all to BJ and myself that this is not what they want. They don't have an interest in this, no matter how much they get in compliance or anything. They don't want this in the neighborhood. And they're asking that you all please do not allow this to happen. That's what the people in the neighborhood are asking.
Mayor Webb, I've got to caution the board again that the Fair Housing Act, the Arkansas Fair Housing Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Civil Rights Acts make it very limited as to what a board can do in terms of traditional housing. If the group for traditional housing, for transitional housing, if the group for the transitional housing is 4 or less, it's a family, just as if 4 unrelated students going to ULR are a family. And the board can't do anything and has nothing to do. If it is a group that is 8 or under, perhaps 7 or under as of about a week ago, then the board has very little it can do, and it is presumed that that is an appropriate number. Once it gets above 8 or 7, as I've told you, is a changing number, but once it gets above that number, then there are things that the board can consider. This is the one area of the law where any comment by a board member at a meeting can be taken as a discriminatory intent. And everything else, as long as you take an action that's legal under the law, what you say up here, what you think up here is irrelevant. In this area, it is relevant. And so we always have to caution the board about what is said, and in this case, the Reverend about what is said, not to disagree with him, simply to say that y'all are under great restriction.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter, and I think the only comments people from the board have made are that, first of all, it's not on the agenda. Second of all, we've tried to clarify that it is going to the Planning Commission and that this is not before the board.
That's right.
Right, good.
So, okay.
Okay,
I do have 2 more cards on it,
okay.
from Charlotte James and Annette Thomas.
You want to say
I spoke
anything?
on it, and he said
Yes,
we would
that was-
communicate and do what we can do,
Right.
and
You said, Ms. James, come to the mic.
we can do what, I understood that. So you'll work on it. We'll work on it together, I hope, and see what's best for all of us. And there are 9 people in there, I was told. I didn't say that. I was told that in the first meeting. And I'm sure they're gonna change it, but I know that there were 9.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Winford.
Hi. I'd like to address the safety of walking on the sidewalks downtown. The scooters that are rented out there, they state on them that they're not to be ridden on the sidewalks, yet people ride those on the sidewalks all over. I can't count the number of times I've been almost ran over. I've been hit a few times, just grazed. But, I see people just riding those things all over the place, and they ride right by the police officers, and the police officers do nothing. That puts us in a lawless society in that specific area. That specific area, we are a lawless society, and I'd like to see that change, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Winford, and I'll ask the people from housing or whatever department that is to make sure that that we're following the ordinance on this particular issue.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your response at all, ma'am.
Well, typically, we don't respond to citizen communication other than to ask people from city departments who follow up on those, to follow up on the issues that a resident brings.
Okay, so this issue will be followed up on?
I'll ask somebody to follow up on it, yes.
Okay, and then do I get a point of contact so I can make sure that this is
I'm not sure if
not
that
just
would be
brushed away?
Mr. Howard or who is responsible for enforcing that ordinance.
There's a franchise and there's a contract, so we'll have to look at both of those.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Okay, what about the police issue, ma'am? The police issue is, I believe, the mayor's responsibility, is that not right?
And we will make sure the mayor is aware of this.
Okay, I don't know who the mayor is.
The mayor's out of town tonight,
Okay,
so, but we'll talk to him about what happened at the meeting and make sure he's aware of it.
is there somebody who can provide me with points of contact that I can follow up with this?
Manager Cox, would you make sure he has a contact? The meeting is almost over, and I'll ask Manager Cox to give you a contact at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
thank you. And I think there was one more person from the group that I didn't call on who had a yellow card. Are we?
I think it's, yeah, because they
We're-
basically want
We're good. Okay. So those are all of the citizen communications. I have one quick announcement for board members to please put on your calendar September 10th at 6 o'clock that night. That's an agenda meeting, and at 6 o'clock that night, we will have the dedication of the carousel at the zoo. It has been reinstalled, and so Susan will be here in a week or so, and you'll get an invitation about it. But if you could, go ahead and put it on your calendar, September 10th, 6 o'clock at the zoo for the carousel. And I don't see anybody else who has their hand up to bring forward. If there's a motion to adjourn, is there a second? There's a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, please say aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.